Hi, I'm Bob in Cincinnati, and I'm going to do my first 818 assembly video. Today we're going to talk about building headlights and mounting headlights in the bumpers and building the buckets to make them fit. My qualifications for building cars, well, back in 2005 I started building Pinewood Derby cars with my son. Each year he'd do one and I do one. A whole lot like we're doing the 818s right now. He's building the first one and I'm going to build the second one. And then we would race them against each other, see who was the fastest, and that's the one we would race with that year at the district championship. Or we raced at the pack level first, and then with the district championship. In the Cincinnati district, there's about 3,000 Cub Scouts. And for 2 years in a row, 2006, 2007, Michael's car won first place in speed 2 years in a row. So that's a pretty big feat to beat 3,000 dads and kids each year. So that's my qualifications. Let's get on to mounting these headlights. Here's a closer look at those cars. The first thing to do to the headlight buckets are cover the clear lens with painter's tape. First I peeled off the original plastic coating that was on them, put the painter's tape on them, and that'll protect them from getting scratched while you put them in the car. Okay. If you look in the manual, there's this little mounting tab on the side of the headlight bucket, and it has you cut off the gusset plates kind of to make this a flat surface. Okay, so that's one other thing you have to do in prep for the headlights. Another thing you should do in prep for the headlights is also put tape covering the holes where the light bulb's going back. That'll prevent little fiberglass shavings and dust and things like that from getting into the lens, because if it's on the inside of your lens, there's no way to clean it out. So that's what you have to do to prep the headlight bracket, or the headlight assembly. The next thing to do is mount a fender to your bumper in the proper position. As you see, I have one clamp mounting the inside edge of the fender to the top edge of the bumper bracket. And on this side, where the fender and bumper meet, there is one bracket on the inside, or there's a couple clamps on the inside holding that together. I have this sitting flat on a table, and to make it so there's no stress on it, I have a 4-inch spacer underneath the fender that holds the thing correct with the at the correct height while the bumper is sitting flat on the table. The next thing that I did is I took my headlight assembly, okay, and I want to put it in that hole that the headlight looks out to and push it up in place till I can find the best fit of how it fits in there. And when you push this into the back, there's this hook on the top of the headlight that you have to put on top of the bumper bar. So you push it in like that, and then you put it in like this, and then you wiggle it around and you find the place that you think is the best fit, that all the gaps are the smallest. And once you have it there, I put a spacer underneath to hold it in position. Okay, right there I've got it, what I think feels pretty good. I've got probably an 1/8 of an inch gap or less on this bottom edge here, all the way across. Okay, and on the top edge, I got maybe a full 1/4 of an inch gap right here at that peak point, right here. And then it slopes down to about no gap over in here. But that's about the best I can get that headlight in there. Here's a shot from the back side of what's holding that headlight up right now. Now that I got the headlight in there, I want to use a pen all the way around the edge, and that's to trace the line of where it meets the fiberglass. And that's so I can get it back to this position when I do that. I also put some tape on the bumper here so I can put some index marks here and on the headlight, and also up here and on the headlight to make sure they match at that point, so I got it the right distance horizontally when I go to put this back in. The next thing I want to do is get the buckets to match the headlight. I'm using the plastic buckets. They're like this, and the headlight sits in them just like this, and it goes down to an edge. Okay. Now, what I do is I'm looking on the bottom side here, and I'm trying to slide it back and forth and stuff like that, and find the place where it fits it the best. It doesn't fit like a glove. It'd be nice if it would, but I can tell right about here is where it fits the best. And as you see right here, I did have to cut out a hole a little bit for this protrusion on the headlight to stick through, to get this down far enough to where it's almost sitting all the way flush in the bottom of the headlight. I wasn't able to get it all the way flush. There's still, you know, an 1/8 to 3/16 area. I guess if I push it down, it's all the way flush. But that's the best fit. If I pull it up this way, you can see the headlight comes way up on that side, and I can't get it down this far. Okay. And then what I'm going to do, and I'll set this down to do this, something you can also notice from my adjustment here, is this end of this headlight right here is right even with the end of the bucket right here. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to tape the headlight into the bucket. Right where it's all lined up. The best I could get it. One more piece of tape on here. So that's the headlight sitting in the bucket. Now with the headlight assembly right here, we're going to take that and put it into the bumper. I think the best way to get this thing in is actually go in. Well, I'm not actually sure. Let me try this from this side. Yeah, it goes in much easier. Much easier from the bottom. If you had two people for this, it might be a little easier too. that up like that. I'll hold it right here, and I'll put my thermos jug spacer underneath it to hold it up in place. Need to raise it up some more until I get to my marks. Okay. There, I've got it lined up to my marks. This end has to go down a little bit right here. Might have a little bit too much spacer in there. Let this down a little bit. A little bit smaller spacer here. Okay. Alright, I've got it right where I want it, sitting in the bumper right now. I've added 3 clamps to help hold things in position so they don't move on me. And one thing you can notice here is this part of the bucket fits very nicely into this curve on the top, and this curve right here matches the contour of the bumper assembly. So I know that my bucket's in the right place, okay, but I think I have a problem with my buckets over on this side of the bucket. If you look down in this hole right here between the fiberglass and the in the bucket, there's about a 3/4 inch gap between the bucket and my fiberglass, and I got a tape measure here. I think it's about a 1/2 inch too low. So I got out my tape measure and measured the gap between the end of the bucket and this is the end of the bucket right here, and this is my fiberglass part of the bumper. And you see my fat fingers fit all the way in there. There's about 3/4 clearance there, and this top surface of this bucket right here is almost a 1/2 inch below this. So what I'm going to have to do to make this work is I'll probably put some kind of spacer between here, you know, a 3/4 inch spacer or so, and then I will use that to hold that bucket right here. To do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill. I have 2 holes already in this one because I've had this together once before, but I'll use these holes again. Okay, I'll go right through here and right through here, and I'll go into the bucket, and I'll put some 3/4 inch spacers on those bolts, okay, to basically hold that bucket right there with those 2 holes. Okay, now I bolted in my bucket. I've got the 2 screws here that I drilled in. As you can see from this top view here, I used 2 1/4-inch nylon nuts as spacers to space between the bumper piece and the end of the bucket. Okay. I also bolted things in here at the top. Right here, you can see, is the bolt that goes down through here. Eventually, this bolt will go through the tab on the radiator mount. Okay, so no need to put a nut on the back of that one yet. But I also put 2 screws right through here and here on the to the bucket, to the bumper, to hold that in position. Okay, and that all has gone well. And so the next thing that I need to do, and as you look at my bucket, or my headlight, there's some gap around here at the front. It's down a little bit too low right now, and it still has to come up, so it needs to be pushed up from the bottom to make it come up and mate. So I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Now, one of the hardest things is getting the bucket out, getting the headlight out of the bucket once it's all assembled. I tore off this tape here. That's what held this tape here, and I got it on the back also. These were tape that held the headlight to the bucket. So I removed those pieces of tape to make it so that I could get the headlight out of the bucket now. Now, from this position though, you can't just lift the headlight out. It's stuck under this front edge. And there's no way to get it out that way or up this way. There's only one way to get it, and that's kind of where I'm standing. You have to pull the thing straight toward me. Remember that protrusion that was on the bottom of the headlight bucket? Well, firstly, when you start pulling it, you got to kind of lift up on this end to get that out of that hole, and then you can slide the headlight bucket toward me. I haven't tried this yet since I mounted it, so okay. So that comes up and out, and then you slide it this way, and right there, and you come out like that. It's real easy that way. Once I get the next support in, it'll get a little harder than that, but it still can be done. Well, with my headlight bucket in here, you know, I push down on it and stuff, and it all seems pretty solid. Okay, but when I remove the thermos bottle I've got underneath holding it up, what you'll see is that this bucket is very flexible right here. It can move up and down. Okay, so what Factory 5 has given us is that right here in the bucket there's a little boss that kind of sticks out. That's so you can put a head of a screw there and when you put that screw in, it won't hit the head won't hit the headlight. Okay, now Factory 5 supplied you with a little Z bracket. Okay, I didn't want to put a hole in the bottom of my bumper because I didn't want, you know, even though you'd have to lay down on the ground to see the bolt head, I didn't want to do that. So I made this small little Z bracket. It's basically 2 inches up, 1 inch over, 1 inch up, and it's got 2 1/4-inch holes in it. And then I bought this glue-on standoff from McMaster Car, and I've got 2 nuts on here so I can adjust it to any height I want. And what I'll do is I'll screw this on the bottom of that, and this will sit right here inside this lip right here. It'll sit on top of it on the inside, and I can adjust this then to hold that front edge of the bucket up, and also with this I can adjust it up and down. So give me a minute and I'll put this in. As you can see, I've got my Z bracket. It's sitting on that little shelf. Okay, when the time is right, I will raise it up a little bit, and put some epoxy glue underneath it, let it down, it sits back down into the epoxy, and it should hold it there just fine. With my Z-bracket in place, now the bucket is pretty sturdy all over, you know, very little movement relative to the bumper. It's in there tight, it's not moving anywhere. Okay, when the headlight goes in here, the clearance between the front of the headlight lens and this thing right here is not going to be perfect. Okay, I've got anywhere from touching to maybe 3/16 of an inch gap. So what I decided to use on this is I've got some rubber molding here. This is 1/8 inch wide by 1/2 inch deep, and it's got a rounded edge on that, and I'm going to put this on this bottom edge all the way up along here. And what that allows me to do is once the headlight is in, okay, once the headlight is in and up against it, or if there is still a gap, I can just kind of slide it up toward it. Okay, and if I get real ambitious, when I'm all done, okay, and everything's in there and it's on the car, everything's lined up perfect, I may take a like a hypodermic needle and inject glue inside the gap between here and here to hold that so it'll never move off of there. But it fits pretty tight. I don't think it's going to move. Either that or I could just lift up the edge, put a little, you know, line of glue on the inside there, and then push it back down. So right now I'm going to install that. We'll start it all the way down here on the end and work our way up. Right to there. That should give me a little cleaner look on the front edge or the bottom edge of the headlight. I've got some different size edging for the top. Now to mount my headlight inside of the housing, I have to do the exact opposite of what I did before, which means I need to go in from this direction and go in. And now things are getting, especially since I added this edging, things are getting a little tighter. Okay, I got that underneath there. So this is underneath there and this is on top. And my front edge here is sticking out. I got to force it and bend it a little bit to get this to go down and in. By the way, you have to take out the light bulbs before you do this. There. Once it drops to there, then I take this to here and get it to drop in and it'll slide right on over. And get it a little bit farther. One of my marks I know is this, the end of this thing has to be even with the fiberglass right here. So I know this end has to go up just a bit. You get that mark there. And then this mark here is down in the position where it needs to be. Okay. Now I notice I still have a pretty good gap right here. I don't know if you can see that on camera or not. Let's see if I can slide this around. Okay. There's still maybe an 1/8 to 3/16 gap in there, even with the weather strip in there. And so now what I need to do to get that up is I'll adjust the Z-bracket a little bit, which will raise that. And as you see, when I pick it up, it does come up and close that gap. I can also, if I want to close the gap, I can just push in this rubber, okay, and that also closes that gap. The next thing that I'm going to do is prepare the fender for putting it on. And for the fender, I've got some, it's some 1/8 inch, you know, wide groove, and it's 1/4 by 1/4 height and width. That I'm putting it on this front, I call it the eyelid of the fender. Okay? And by having that on there, there's a couple things this will do. Both the bottom and the top, it'll keep the fiberglass. When you're going down the road, you got a lot of wind hitting this and things are squeaking and moving around. And that fiberglass is going to scratch and wear into the plastic lens on the headlight. And by having this rubber molding on here, it'll prevent that from doing it, plus you won't get that constant squeak of, you know, plastic grinding in the plastic. So that's what I did there. Now to put the fender on, what I've found is easiest is there's a little hole like right here where I have my finger, and there's a little tab that is sticking out of my fender right here. So what I do is I stick that kind of right down there in that hole. It's a little this way. And then I let the fender down in place. Okay, let me go back here for a second. I bring this over here. Move that fender into where it goes. I'm going to add a clamp right here to help hold this on this side. That'll hold that right there. I've got a pretty good straight line here, and I'm not too bad as far as my elevation going from this panel up to this panel. Okay? And also, right now, I'm going to add this clamp right here to clamp my fender to the bumper right here. And a little bit of force engineering will make that thing line up. Okay? So basically what I've got right now is I've got the headlight here. I've got maybe a 3/16 inch gap here, and it's actually touching over here. Okay? And in the bottom, I've got about a 3/16 in the middle and nothing at the end. So what I need to do from here, I think, is push it up a little bit farther in there, and it closes all those gaps. So again, I need to raise my Z-bracket. Which will, when I do that, it'll raise that into place. And I've got, still got a little bit of gap up here. I could possibly push this edging down a little bit. I got a pretty good gap on the bottom, a little bit big right in here. But I'm happy with it. And so that's it. So that's my video on installing headlights. Okay. I know there's a bunch of people on the forum, and I'm sure by the time this is done, for every car there's probably going to be a different method for doing this. But this one seemed to work for me pretty well. Thank you.